I care, Bob.
Post office in
You'll
South
get it
End.
eventually, and you can always call,
I don't know where that is.
You have a extra sheet.
if not, I can go grab one.
What?
Or we
I
got
don't know, it's just a long way
Yeah.
to drive.
A rhino, I got a right.
I thought they had to be,
What's that?
Thank you. We have to break out extra
that
checks.
doesn't sound right.
Well, I told them that I was planning on having a migraine at 4:05.
He didn't buy it?
One of the ladies that works with my daughter, they were trying to get her to go to the company picnic, and they said, well, it's Saturday, and this is like Thursday. She said, I'm planning a migraine at 2 o'clock that afternoon, so.
Huh.
That's why I was planning a migraine at 4:05, but I was still here helping customers, so I couldn't have one, so.
I'll call him this week, make sure, see what he was gonna do. Come to
That,
the next meeting and resign.
That doesn't sound right. I wonder why would they put it,
Well, I think we gotta do.
what's wrong with it down
Cause I
here?
either,
You don't have anybody that's
That's
willing
what I told him,
to,
so it'd be better
To do
take
it?
the contract.
And you don't make any money at it from what I've been told.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
I mean, Jim Klupfel, Jasper Kinney, both businessmen that do business here, both looked into it, and you can't even break even.
Yeah, I think he's gonna.
and, you know, what's the point?
Yeah, Jasper owns the building on the
Yeah,
corner,
sure.
and he couldn't break even with his own building.
We
Yeah,
gotta
sure
do
can't
something.
afford to put in a building to
Yeah,
run it.
Right.
Look at it.
They've got a-
I mean,
they've got a
anybody
ton of
was sick.
Requirements.
Couldn't even have a meeting. Yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
I agree. Okay, we wanna call to order the Colorado City Metropolitan District, Director Study Session, at 6 o'clock straight up. Okay, first thing on is bids for properties. These 3 bids are from the original 5 we had, not last meeting before last. Went back to them, told them our offer was that we'd accept 3,000 on each property, that's what they came back with. If you look under your first section, I have the copies of all the paperwork if you want it. I figured you didn't wanna have all that in your book, but, this is, if you
It's
look
3
at it.
separate contracts?
Yes. That's what we're looking at is the unit number, the lot number, what our price in our books state, which is, some of them are hypothetical, some of them aren't. I put down the square footage of the lot as recorded, what the tax value on them lots are, and what the purchase price that they're asking to buy the lots. I know in the past, when we did go through this, I asked you whether it was, all 5 are at 3,000, and you said, no, we could break it up, that it would be 3,000 per lot, so.
So they came back with the
With the
3,000
counter
for these
offer.
3 lots, dropped the other 2.
Yeah. Okay, any questions, board? Okay, next on it, we have, we're looking at refinancing. Yvonne and I have been working with Debbie, Kyle. I went to USDA to see what we can do with it. What we're looking at is for our infrastructure, I just had a meeting with Windwater this morning. Donnie and I, they had a special on their meters, which would almost save us $100,000 on the price of our meters. So, we're still looking at the 550 in that aspect, because we figure if we have to hire an extra person in there, or, if machine, we have our backhoe that's gonna be out there, and we got this new vac truck, which is, parts and pieces, we've got it going right now, it's probably, we have about $1,300 in it, and it's operational, but we have a few valves that we needed to change out so that we can use the pressure washer in it to vac. We're gonna have a couple other pieces that we needed for attachments. We can also end up cleaning out our sewage, basins with it. We just need a couple pieces some parts to do that, because since it's an 8-inch vacuum, we need to go down to a 4-inch since it's so deep, you know, so that way we still get the suction to get it up and into the truck. Cause right now we have the motor for the one basin that's been out since February. The motor was just shipped Friday. Am I right, Gary?
The valve, yes.
Yeah, the valve
Shipped
was-
out of, Dusseldorf, I think.
Dusseldorf, Germany. So, we're waiting on that so we can get it back and get basin one up, and then we'll be kinda hopefully home free with our sewer plant. But these are some of the different things. I know we just went through, we had bought, new filters for our water, well, not new filters, used filters from, where was it?
Carter Lake,
Carter Lake, what, 5 years ago?
well, at least, yeah.
Yeah, and they were used, we had them on the shelf, we had last week a couple of our skids, just resistance got bad and they went down, we pulled the filters out, they were clogged up. So we ended up pulling those filters down and going through them to find enough, and we did enough to do 2 skids out of it. So we have one skid that is still running on the 7-year-old filters, which should only run 3 years. So we're pushing the limit. That's why I put it in, that was about $130,000. That's, I think, what they quoted us for new filters.
And that's for 3?
That's for all 3 skids. Cause there's 48,
48 or 42, I forget.
Which will still leave us a few backups, I guess, but they're old ones,
That'd
or no?
just barely make it.
so that's one of those things that we can look at. That's why I kinda did a little inflation. If you notice, it doesn't add up to the 900,000, but you're gonna have some finance costs and stuff that go into, the refinancing, no matter what you do, whether it's through USGA or whatever. Talking with USGA, there's a lot of hoops we're gonna have to go through. We'll have to have a, leak survey, all of that kind of stuff to show a need for it, whereas if we go through direct financing through either a bank or through, an investment company, we won't have all them hoops, but your interest is gonna be probably 0.5% higher. And when you get down to the end with the USGA, they can turn around and say, oh, no, we don't want it, we don't feel that, we want that. So that's why I'm looking at both and trying to work out to see what it's gonna take for the USGA, or USDA, and going through a bank, so that way, whatever we can do and save money on, and possibly, if we go through USDA, can we get some grant funding out of it? You know, for loan forgiveness. So, that's, the bad thing about it is, we cannot refinance until December. So, that kinda puts us in another situation. Is it better that we look to see if we wanna get our meters in before wintertime and get them going and do a lease option on it? And then pay them off when we do refinance, whatever. That's one of the things that we're looking at.
Have we done any study tests on the meters?
On the meters, right, on the ones that we have done, and Donnie's, I think he's done 3 of them, and they're running right about 30%.
He did 10,
He did 10?
We haven't put all
and
10 in
30%
yet.
actually worked.
Pardon?
We
30%
haven't-
actually worked.
We put 3 in at new houses.
Yeah, the new
Well,
And
one.
then
brand new.
we've done 5 at other houses that
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, that's
those-
the one I'm basically
They
asking.
just put those in, so we don't have
So
the,
you
So
don't have
how
any,
Not
many
yet,
meters
we
is
don't
the
have-
$550,000?
For that, we're looking at, what was it,
Darn near
1,100, 1,100 meters.
You're gonna find a lot of money in there too. We're making twice the money
Well,
that we're
yeah, I
putting
mean,
in.
if what you guys have been telling us is true, we're gonna pay that 550,000 in no time flat.
Yeah, I think we'll return our investment within 2 to 3 years.
I would just love to be
Unless-
able to see those houses that you put online.
Well, they just did it last week, so we
So
won't
yeah,
have
I would really
anything
love to
until
see
the
the
end of July.
results from that.
Yeah,
Well, we've got till December, I mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
We need the data behind it.
Yes, I would like to see the data
Actual
behind it
data.
first.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a real problem with this 500,000 because I've got no studies or anything to confirm that these meters are bad. Now, I know we have some bad meters,
Yeah.
but where are we going, how are we showing that all these meters are bad? If we got 1,100 meters we wanna replace,
The,
how are 1,100 meters bad?
the biggest thing too is you're gonna have a cost savings in what usually it takes us 5 days to read them with our crews, which you're taking on an average. Right now you have 2 guys that are out in the water crew. We're using Josh's crew, that are cutting weeds, which is usually 4 people there. And even if we don't have Josh's crew, we might pull somebody from golf course in the wintertime to help read. So those are salaries that you are paying to just read meters for 5 days.
Correct, but we're already paying those salaries, so I wanna know why we need 1,100 meters. How many are actually bad? I know you want to upgrade, there's no
Mhm.
doubt you want to upgrade. My concern is, if we've got 1,100 meters and 900 of them are good, that's not a reason to upgrade. How are we going to test a meter?
I'll tell
You're
you-
saying we're just gonna walk in here, throw a new meter in and call it good.
No, actually what it was too is it's like this month. Okay, we produce 12 million gallons,
13 million gallons. at the
13
one
million
plant.
gallons, and we build 6 million gallons.
But this has been going on for many, many years. You
Yes,
haven't
it has.
shown me, you say we've got leaks, but we can't
Well-
accommodate all of the leaks. You know,
I think what they did with those 7 meters is the way to do it. I would love to see a little bit more in depth than just 7
Mhm.
meters. But I think that's the route to verify what we're doing is correct.
Donnie has tested some of those meters, he pulled 10, and out of those 10, 7 didn't work. Wow. Any meter that's over 10 years needs to be replaced.
so you're saying those people didn't get a bill, or they got a bill too high, or a bill too low? What do you mean by didn't
Incorrect
work?
bill.
A bill
Probably
too
a low bill.
Yeah, it wasn't, it
Because it
was
wasn't
working
working.
too low, it wasn't working correctly.
Usually with the meter, it will run slower, or it won't pick up the flow. Because with the old time meters, they have a dial in them.
I know.
Yeah.
And those impellers wear out, either due to dirt, whether due to chemicals.
When was
whether
the
to-
last study of the meters?
Was 2009, and at that time they said you needed.
What did that study have? Do we have that study to look at?
Yeah, I've seen it and I'll find it, cause I have to send it to, Deb, and I'll make sure you get a copy of it.
Great, I'd like to see that study.
And that was a 2009 study.
I would
Also,
say at
um,
least 70% of our meters were installed in 1996.
Definitely,
70%.
Just rough
Um,
off the top of my head.
we also
Of
have
course, new
replacement of
houses.
fire plugs and infrastructure valves, we do 100,000. How much of that is fire plugs?
Probably looking at 12.
Okay.
I know you've told me that Mr. Bennett, and I've been
Did
talking
you
with
ever
Steve.
talk to him?
Yes, I have. I'm still working on that process. I know we have, what I did is, this last week, we got on, rural water, which you guys have never been registered into rural water, to go to grants and loans and give us the ability for next year to look into getting your surveys, to getting, grants for that.
Can we get an update, after you speak with Chief Bennett
Yeah,
on the fire plugs?
cause he's looking at doing, fire, he wants to go through and do fire, hydrant tests this week and stuff.
Okay.
So we'll be working
Well,
with
he
him.
had talked about some possible grant money
Money
to
for-
take care of these and put in
For
stuff we need
infrastructure.
or some new ones,
Yeah,
is what he had in mind. That's why I say I kinda like an update
okay.
on the fire meter section. I don't see any problem with valves and so that's necessary. filters are gonna be necessary, but I'd like to see, is there any other type of filter that we can lower our cost in the long run?
Not that I know of. I can ask, we'll have Gary get with
You
the.
look around, but I don't think there's anything but Siemens will fit Siemens.
'Cause at this point, we're skipping 2 stages of water filtration, or water, processing, and going straight to filter, and that's killing our filters. Doesn't matter what kind of filter we put in, when we're missing 2 sections of the plant.
Not
And I hate to
necessarily.
put in, well, even the engineer agreed that we never put in the.
The sedimentation.
Yeah, the sedimentation part was never put in, those filters wouldn't be wearing out near as quick as they are, if that sedimentation part was there.
But it's sedimentation and flocculation was the 2 missing sections.
So I just trying to get a little clarification here. So if we replace all the filters now, then in 3 years, we have to replace all the filters again? I mean, ideally,
Ideally within 5 years. yes.
5 years,
Yeah.
okay. And the water meters,
They'll have a 20-year lifespan on them.
okay,
Okay,
everything
that's-
being equal, we will save, we'll have 30% more productivity from what water we produce.
You'll
Is
probably,
that right?
You'll probably have about a 60%
Okay,
productivity.
and less labor, more, well, not less labor, as Bob pointed out, they're already on the payroll, but more work will get done.
Yes, because you are taking them off doing other jobs to go read meters
Yeah,
out
meters.
for 5 days.
So one thing I would personally think of, if I owned Colorado City, would be if it wouldn't be much more fiscally responsible to, I mean, we probably can't make all of 4/5 of the filters last, or 2/3 of the filters last. But wouldn't it be better to be, these major expenses, to have them on some kind of
Yes.
continuum?
Yes.
Replace a
Yes.
1/5 of the meters
Yes.
every year, or 1/3 of the filters?
Yes,
Rather than
all at one time.
drop $1 million.
Which happened is you haven't had that
Right.
set into your budgets as replacement or any upgrades.
We were lucky to be able to pick up the filters that we did at the price we did. They were $25 a piece. Right now, they're about 1,100 for a brand new.
Well, yeah, I think,
But they-
the more data we can get, the better, but also if we can figure out some way to make a reasonable rotation.
Yes.
But out of the ones that we did buy, we probably were able to salvage half of them.
Out of the last batch, yes.
Yes.
This is 2 times we replaced
Those-
filters in there too.
So, using his rotation idea then,
Mhm.
is there any need for us to purchase then, at this point, all those meters at once? Should we rotate out,
Well, you should.
say, 1/3 of the, and take the oldest meters?
Yeah,
We
you've got
rotate
stuff
out
from
a
the
third of
60s
them.
out there still.
We get rid of them, we
Yes,
rotate all them
definitely.
out, okay? We buy about 1/3 of what we've got here, and then next year, we rotate out some more.
You're gonna find 50 to 100% increase in your revenues with every one that's put in.
With the deal that they had coming out this year for like wind water that we have, it's up until December 31st, we can buy these meters, and just the meters alone are gonna be $230,000. I'm putting a lot in there, just in case, if we have to buy risers and new stops and things like that.
Different
because
lids, there's a lot to it.
There's gonna be different parts and pieces within, just not only the meter.
So I would like to see a better breakdown
I
of
was
this.
just-
So, you started, I thought, a whole thought though about if we did it by the end of the year.
If we did it by the end of the year, the meters alone will cost us right at 200,000, which when Donnie looked at Neptune, they were $289,000. So that's almost $100,000 savings if we can, but you have to order 1,000.
That's the catcher right there, is order 1,000 and get
Yeah.
that price.
Okay, well, yeah, I think if you can provide us with that
Okay.
2009 test and,
Okay.
just more information.
Like I said, I'm just bringing this to the board to warn you
Well,
that
yeah, we've
these
got-
things are coming forward,
Yeah.
and how are we gonna handle them in this situation?
Exactly.
And those, do you know the ones that he replaced, were they
Yeah,
90s, were they 60s?
that. I'd have to go back and look, I'm not sure on that.
We can put that together.
But I can find
Well, within a
out.
month,
Yeah.
we'll have
And
some
by the
data.
end of
Yeah.
July,
Yeah.
by the time we do our final meeting in July, I should have that, at least know what they used in July as compared to what they used last July, to tell you what difference, granted,
What difference?
whether they water
Cause if
a
it
lot,
makes as
but-
big a difference as what you guys are projecting that it's gonna make, then it would make sense, in my opinion, to buy it all and get it done. But we're going on faith. there.
Just a thought on the matter, and I don't know if you've got people down there that could construct something, but we all have water tanks and such. Is there I know there's a possibility, but I appreciate somebody put some thought into it, of putting a measured tank on the back of a truck and make a few adapters where they could roll up and test a meter. I know it's not a perfect scientific test, but if you run 300 gallons through a meter, just reach in the hole, unplug it, give everybody warning, to test a meter. If somebody says, hey, my meter's wrong, you roll up, you make your connections, you run that 300 gallons through, and it better read 300 or we've got an issue. Just pump it through it.
If I had the manpower to do it, yes,
Donnie has done some of that though.
cause right now you have 3 guys, Donnie is one of them.
I understand.
So you have 2 guys that were supposed to be doing I&I study and, videotaping sewer lines and all of that. We also have those 3 out of those 3 guys that are running the grader, doing roads when we get calls. They're the ones that are doing, line locates and stuff like that for all this building that's going on. Every day I know I get at least 3 to 4 line locates.
We don't
Yeah,
need
check
this
out.
done in 30 days.
I know.
I'm just saying, if we had some way, when somebody says, my meter's wrong,
Oh,
you walk out there, you send the truck over, it may not be the next day, but within a week, you go over and you test it. And that's some data that we can verify against this study. Are the meters really wrong? It's just, like I say, I'm not going to push it any further.
You guys wanna go over and test my meter, I'm all for it.
you know what? We have our test that goes out every year, that we knock on people's houses, give them a bottle to fill up, and we ship them to Denver.
That's great for testing the water.
Yeah, but you know how many people will not answer the door or will not?
And I'm not asking you to go to those. I'm saying if like Mike says, come test my
Yeah,
meter,
oh, yeah.
you know.
Those
I
are the
think
ones
it's
I don't have
wrong.
to worry about though.
What?
You know,
If you're telling me though, we suspect this neighborhood, and you go through the neighborhood,
Yeah.
and you get some of them, and you test, say, 10% of the neighborhood, we can extrapolate the data there to
To
know what's really
pull it
bad.
out. Yeah.
So, yeah, more info.
Okay. Next section, I put in there the 2018 CCR water report. It has been posted in our posting areas, that are all specified. If anybody wants one, they can come to the office and get a copy, or it is on our website. That satisfies all the legal and state of Colorado expectations.
Am I correct, this only goes through 18, or does it go into 19?
This is 18 only.
Okay, so from what I understand, this year being 19,
Mhm.
we've only had one minor incident. Bad reporting.
And that was,
Late reporting.
it was a late report, but
Yeah,
it was
that's what
just
I'm saying.
because
That's
when
all
they didn't
that I
hit,
know of.
Gary didn't hit send and he thought it
Yeah.
went, but it didn't.
But
And
that's
we-
all we've looked at so far this year.
Yes,
So,
Yes.
and then 18 looks real good for the, you know, after about
the
June or
first
July,
quarter.
yeah. After the first quarter, it started straightening out really well.
Yeah.
Looking good.
Okay.
We're getting there.
Anything
Okay.
else on the study session, James?
That was it, that's
Okay.
all I have.
Close the study session, go straight to the regular meeting. Would you join me in the pledge?
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would care to, join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Let the minutes reflect 3 members of the board are here. Mr. Hochstetter and Mr. Hunter are not. There is a quorum. I need an approval for the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I have a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
It has been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as presented. Next item is the approval of the minutes. The approval is for both the study and work session of June 11th and the regular meeting of June 11th.
Mr. Chairman, as normal, due to the statement we provide on each set, I would move that we accept the minutes as written.
It has been moved that we accept the minutes of the 2 aforementioned meetings. Could I get a second?
I will second it.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there, I always forget which meeting the financial stuff is. That's next meeting.
Bills payable.
No,
That's not
it's
this
this
one.
month, this one we
Okay.
paid first of the month.
First of the month for the prior month.
And operational reports too.
See, I just never pay mine, so I. All right, I will read the statement of conduct and demeanor. In order for the business of the board to be conducted in the most effective and expeditious manner, it is necessary that all persons present maintain a demeanor of civility toward the board, staff, and each other. Conduct that appears threatening or aggressive will not be tolerated. Shouting, speaking out of order, or the use of offensive gestures similarly are not acceptable. Such behavior shall constitute the forfeiture of your right to remain in attendance and may, as a point of order brought to the board's attention by council or any board member, including the chairperson, result in your being asked to leave the meeting by the chairperson or, upon your refusal, being escorted out of the meeting by the proper authority. Do we have citizens
I
input?
didn't know, were you wanting to speak during citizens input? Okay,
And
the,
just-
the clipboard was kinda hidden, so I didn't
Okay.
know if Mr. Hamlin wanted to speak, or if he was just here to.
I just appeared to answer any questions
Okay,
if I could be
okay,
of
that's
help.
all I was.
Okay, Mr. Handler, thank you. Agenda
To
items?
the correspondence, I see the name, Hamler, is that there? Okay.
Yeah, that's what it is, I believe. Agenda items, James?
Agenda items, the only thing that we have is the bid on the properties, to accept the offer of the 3,000. Like I said, that's what was said from the last meeting. I didn't know, Bob said I could've just ran it through, but I figured I'd run it back to the board and say, okay, they did offer the 3,000, and are we willing to sell?
Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to accept the offers as written.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the offers of $3,000 for 3 different properties. Each $3,000 each for 3 different properties. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak just a second on that.
You may.
You know, we argued about whether or not to bring in professionals to handle the real estate. I think this is a good opportunity to say, hey, this could have been done a month ago, had we had just signed a document. I'm not gonna push for, professional at this time, but we seriously need to consider using a professional for real estate sales. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. We have a vote, a motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No attorney's report, no executive session, any new business?
Mr. Chairman, I have one new business.
Okay, Mr. Cook?
Mr. Chairman, I call for a point of order. I respectfully request the chair declare a vacancy on the board pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes, Title 32, Article 1, 905, subsection G.
Okay, point of order being that, it's a decision the chair can make, without the necessity of a vote. I've talked to Justin on 2 different occasions, and both of those occasions, he indicated to me that he was going to resign. The statute that Bob's talking about, indicates that after 4 consecutive missed meetings, that it implies a vacation of that position. So I am assuming, I talked to him as recently as last Tuesday, that he does not have a problem with that. I don't know why there hasn't been a resignation at this point, but I would, based on the section that Bob read, declare an opening on the board of directors. And we need to begin the process of notification of interest in that position.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to start the process to notify the public and post accordingly to fill a position on the board. I would also like to add to that motion that any prospective board members be interviewed at the, not the next meeting, but the following meeting, and then the board vote after considering those interviews, the meeting after. That keeps us within our 60-day time frame.
Okay,
So that would be interviews on the 23rd of July, right?
Mhm.
Sounds correct.
30th
That'll
would be the last Tuesday.
meeting would be 30th, yeah.
30th of July,
30th.
and then the selection would be,
Then you give your
First.
decision on, August 13th.
13th. Okay, so that was a rather lengthy motion. If I mess it up, feel free. We have a motion on the floor to make the proper postings, to indicate the opening on the board of directors. Further, to close that application process by July, let's make it the 26th, if that's all right with you, to give time to disseminate interested parties to us before the meeting on July 30th, to interview at that meeting, and then make a selection in the meeting of August the 13th.
I would recommend the 25th. That way I have them so I can get the packets and stuff on that Friday.
Okay.
We have to be careful with our 60-day time.
No, he means do you mean the closing?
No, just if
vote.
you're interested in all of that we need
The
to have your application or
Yes.
notice of interest by the 25th of
Okay.
July.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Would you repeat it backwards?
Absolutely not.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion on the floor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Any other new business? Old business? Okay, correspondence, James?
Correspondence, you have 2 letters in your packet that came out. Mr. Hamler, he put in a letter here for subject of monthly sewer fees. Mr. Ecker, I'm writing to request a $78.37 refund or credit of excess sewer charge for January through May 2019 on my
subject residential account. My monthly sewer fee is $40. The basis of variance varies in average winter consumption of 4,000 gallons monthly applied usage versus 1,704 gallons monthly actual usage. I think the correct monthly sewer fee is in 2019 for account is $24.98 or $15.66 a month, less than a bill, as follows. When we set this up as a general household is 4,000 gallons is our base on it. If your household in those months of December, January, and February are above the 4,000, then your base goes up. This is how we ran it for, I don't know how long, I know since I've been here, that it is on an average of a 4,000 gallon usage per household.
So everybody pays a base rate
Yes,
of 4,000 gallons per month.
yes,
Across the board, there's no exceptions to that.
yes.
Unless you use more.
Unless you use more.
Yours is more.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know mine's more, I can
Yeah,
guarantee you
but like,
that.
I also don't use 4,000 gallons a month.
Got 8 kids.
And mine is that base.
I know I use 3,000 on mine too.
Let's let Mr. Hamler speak to it.
Well, thank you. I did not know that. A week ago, I had asked for a list of how you calculate your water and wastewater fees. And I don't see, although maybe they're published otherwise, to where I would know that 4,000 gallons is the average winter consumption. My understanding is that fee, or that basis for your wastewater fee, is to give the homeowners some kind of you might say, a break for the lower consumption months in the winter. That's more than twice the consumption that I actually use, and I felt that the rates were based on what your actual usage was, not on, for example, the water rate that I see is for the first 5,000 gallons, for example, then your tiers change for consumption above that. Being conscious of the water usage, especially in last year's drought, I've made a concerted effort to lower my consumption, yet my sewer bill didn't reflect that. So I just thought it should. I didn't know that I guess it's all in that how you calculate the average winter consumption.
Yes.
But that's not based on actual. That's the clarification that I guess I needed. I had no, I rarely use 4,000 gallons.
Yeah. Well, what we figure is usually you have 2 people in a household. I know my average water consumption is right around 3,000 to 3,500.
So I was just wanting an explanation of how the average winter consumption was 4,000 gallons based on your fee schedule and my usage.
Yeah.
And that'd be fine. I know that's more than twice what my actual usage is, so I thought it was perhaps in error.
From the understanding I've had for years is it changes if you exceed the 4,000.
Yeah, but if you try to conserve and be a good citizen, last year we all needed to pull back dramatically, and
we did.
And I know I did, and so anyway, I was just questioning as to whether it was ever published to where your fees indicate that 4,000 gallons is the average winter consumption, and if it is, it's just something that isn't on the schedule that I received from the office, and was just new information to me.
And that's something maybe we can put into the next bill, or not probably this bill, but the next bill, as to what our water rates and what our sewer rates are, and how it's calculated.
I think that would help drastically.
Yeah, just.
Because
It would be appreciated. I think it's
we kinda give that benefit of the doubt too with the 4,000, that, you know, in the wintertime, those months, you're not watering outside, you're not growing a garden, you're not doing any of that. So it's basically, what are you using in your house to drink, bathe, those aspects of it.
Well, and for us retired people, and for people who might have a single residential unit with a single person in it, 4,000 gallons, especially in the winter. I know in my case, I bathe every day. And so forth. And
I
so
didn't see
I try-
anyone move away from
So
it.
I try, don't, so I just think that 4,000 gallons is not representative, at least of my usage. Maybe I should increase the usage.
And that kind of defeats what
Yeah,
you're trying to do.
so-
So are these posted on?
I don't know that they are, I do know the 4,000 gallons was set when they did that study that Jim was talking about in 2009. When they did that, it's the Red Oak study, and that was when it was determined that 4,000 would be the base. If we're figuring off of December, January, February, we have to have a base. We have several in the over 20 snowbirds. Their usage shows zero, so we can't use an actual when you get to a lower number
Well,
because
but in
people are
Jan,
gone.
if the rate is set for the whole year, my simple thinking was that at the end of January, when you're sending out that bill, you do know a 3 months usage prior to that. And I'm just presenting in my case, it would be less than half of what the 4,000 average winter consumption is used for that calculation. And I don't know that that's representative. I thought maybe that's what you'd have to do because that's set for the whole year. But I just myself, my feeling is that it would be more understandable or more reasonable if it was based on what a person actually used.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we post a clarification on the website of how we do calculations and make that part of our rules and regulations.
And I certainly didn't want to cause any undue
No.
where I just needed
That's why we're here.
needed to try to understand how.
So what else do you need from us to understand?
Well,
Because
no,
you
just,
can
I think I've received it. I don't need anything else
Okay.
from the board, and I appreciate that. I apologize that I did not know that 4,000 gallons, because it says average winter consumption, and I thought that would apply to my household,
Right.
and in my circumstance, for an average for the winter. That would be high for me in the summer.
We will try to do a better job.
But
on
anyway,
our part.
so it was basically just my misunderstanding, and I think you've cleared it up, and I
Thank you.
apologize for any
No problem.
undue
No,
work or anything.
Oh,
that's,
No,
no, that's the thing is in, I had a few people say, well, why is this in there? Well, it's correspondence, I want the board to know.
Exactly.
And if the person wants to ask a question, we're willing to answer.
Well, if you have a question, there's 20 people with the same question that won't.
Yeah, and there are other users than single family residential, but this one rate then I guess would apply to industries and businesses and
As a
multifamily
commercial-
units.
commercial is
Remember
reserved.
when I gave you that paper I highlighted and I said,
Ah, yeah.
this is you?
Yeah,
Then there were a whole bunch of different other.
so there are
signs.
others that have it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is 4,000 but it doesn't say what the gallon usage is for there. Is 4,000 gallons the same?
No,
It's,
no.
it's different.
No, they,
Yeah, it's different.
Well,
they
that
run
would,
off of their usage.
well, that didn't make sense, and I don't wanna take any more time.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
No problem.
So Bob, would you repeat your motion? I'm sorry, I did.
Yes, I repeat the motion, I make a motion to, post on the website a clarification of how we make calculations, and also, present it as an addition to the rules and regulations, so there's no changes.
I think it's already on there.
Yeah.
I
It
can
is.
pull it up under rules and regs.
Okay, if that, yeah, make sure that it's,
Just clarify it, please.
all right, second.
Okay, the next one,
correspondence.
Greg Stevenson, I guess this is a letter we get from him every year, Karen?
He's brought it in a couple of times. he usually brings it in after I send out the AOS fees.
Okay, so as you know, from my meeting with you, I want to build a home on a lot in Unit 23 in Colorado, city that is not on a main road. You will also remember by mentioning that when I inquired about obtaining a building permit, I was told to check with you at the Public Works Road Bridge Department in a phone conversation before our meeting. You told me I would have to build a road from the existing maintained road over 3/10 of a mile to my building site that would meet county road standards, which would cost $34 per linear foot plus any drainage study costs. The cost for this would over $60,000. Since this would be prohibitive to me and for most other people, we looked at other options. You stated that a policy that had been used that allowed people with cul-de-sac property to build a home without building a road, consisting of having the landowner sign a waiver and designate this road as a private road, therefore relieving the county of maintenance obligations. But you didn't think this policy would be available to me because my road is presently designated as a through road. The road in question, called Geronimo, a road with no homes, no one lives on the road, and no one uses it as a through road and never have. A few people used a short portion at the extreme east end of Geronimo to cross their road. Most of this road, over a mile, is not used and hasn't been since the initial development of Colorado City more than 37 years ago. My building site is at the extreme west end of Geronimo Road. Requiring the road landowner to build up these types of roads would make these roads become ghost roads, never to be used, making adjoining lots non-usable and of no value. Yet other county departments' roads had no knowledge that the developer would declare bankruptcy and never finish their infrastructure, and that they would become a victim of a development that a past local government should have never allowed to be developed in the unfinished way that it was. We need to provide a way for these people to recover from being taken advantage of and having a policy that would allow them to reasonably be able to benefit a little from owning their land rather than leaving it totally non-usable. I don't believe a developer is going to come along and save all these landowners. They haven't for all these years, and it's my understanding that more recently some have investigated the possibility and chose lost my place, emphatically not to get involved. Since all believe that government, among other things, are for protecting the rights of the people to benefit from the ownership of their lands, it appears a new policy or the new use of an existing policy needs to be available to let people use the land they pay taxes on. I believe an owner of a lot on this type of road should be allowed to have his road changed from a through road to a private road, and if necessary, place a no through road sign at the appropriate places and a barricade located near the midway of its length. The owner would sign the customary waiver for it being a private road, thus relieving the county of any maintenance obligations. This allows landowners to benefit a little with the land they own rather than paying taxes on land they can never use or benefit from, which is what it boils down to today. Because there is no sewer service available, and in order to install a septic system, he would have to acquire at least one more adjacent lot to satisfy the square footage requirements for his leach field. Also, over 1/3 of this road is not served with a water line and therefore will never be a building site. And finally, getting electric power service is a very big expense. The landowners need a break, but more importantly, they need to be treated fairly so they can benefit as much as possible from owning a small piece of land in Pueblo County. I hope you agree and can provide a satisfactory plan so the road as it exists will not prevent some of these lots from being used and enjoyed as a home site. So, respectfully, our Glenn Schaefer, and this is Colorado City.
Did we not address this already?
Like I said, it was something that was brought in, and I know he's brought it in
He
the
gave me
past.
this, he handed me his AOS bill, he didn't wanna talk about anything, and he left, he asked me to give this to all the board members. So I made
Mr.
copies.
Chairman, I'd like to address some of this.
Okay,
First off, the documents from 2004 to Greg Severance, which is no longer part of that facility. In 2004, most of this was correct. However, he was mistaken at the time. As for the property or the road being a private road, what he's referring to there was a rule on the books of Pueblo County that if you're on a road of 10 lots or less, you can get it declared a private road and a private drive. We've set that aside because this board has approved roads. It was always our obligation to take care of the roads, and we've since addressed it a couple of months ago. One of the things that I also noticed here, we need to wait for people to, from being taken advantage of this policy. He was completely wrong right there. This was addressed, and he had recourse in 2004 under the Illinois Supreme Court contract with Colorado City. We were supposed to, even though we didn't, and probably nobody offered it at the time, but under that contract, we were obligated to give the man a buildable lot in exchange for his lot. Now that we've changed the conditions, we're probably okay in never having to do that again. You're right that he's right on the cisterns, septics. Yes, you had to acquire a second lot to get enough square footage. I think now it's probably gonna be about 3 lots to get enough square footage. And the water is now available per our last meeting or two via cistern. So almost everything in this has been addressed by this board or was in the previous court decisions. So I think it's nice to see, but it's all taken care of at this time.
is Geronimo goes into Showalter, is Geronimo
Showalter tees into Geronimo.
Right.
Geronimo just keeps going straight. It loops around to the end of, and goes on up into the other unit.
It goes
So,
clear down to
You're
Chalasa.
thinking it stops at
Where
Showalter, it
does
continues.
Showalter and Geronimo intersect on the east end?
They
Or on the-
don't,
They don't,
they don't. Geronimo drops down and goes southwest and comes clear down to Terlessa.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
All
sure,
right.
I could be wrong.
I think this board's done well in addressing
Is
these
this
issues.
is this a phone number right here?
Probably
Yeah.
676.
Is this his address?
His mailing address, yes.
Like I
Maybe you
said,
ought to send him a
Joe
copy.
Lundy.
Maybe you ought to send him a copy of the resolution we did on the roads.
Okay.
Give him a call and let him know that we've sent him a copy.
And the
those issues.
cisterns.
And the cisterns, and if those issues have been addressed.
All right. We need a motion to adjourn.
Please, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second. Meeting adjourned.